Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music and Playlist 20. I'm the 80s Mixtaper, and what an episode we have for you today, possibly the biggest so far. For anyone new to the pod, back in 2016 I made a bet with myself that I could listen to every single charting song from the 31st of December 1979 to the 31st of December 1989. Throw in some COVID and a lot of home time, and by 2021, I'd completed the mission. This pod is the child from that decision. The format of the show is each week, we inch the calendar forward slightly, I create a playlist from the era, and across 2 episodes we dissect the music, looking at the biggest, brightest and most bonkers songs of the 80s. So whether it's Boy George or Drop the Boy by Bros, we will have you covered. Unfortunately, due to the music industry copyright laws stopping actual podcasts promoting their music, we cannot play the songs on the pod. However, if you head on over to the episode description, you'll find playlists for both Spotify and Apple Music, plus a full track listing should those links fail on your podcast platform of choice. As you know, we love your recollections, corrections and fun stories on this pod, and this week we had an outpouring of love for Gilbert O'Sullivan's What's in a Kiss from episode 14 over on TikTok. Dawn Copeland commented, "Beautiful and wonderful song, my dad's song." And that got me thinking about my parents. I suppose I'd always taken for granted what they'd listened to. They didn't have huge amounts of albums, some Dr. Hook, some ABBA, Boney M's breakthrough album, some Barry Manilow for my mum, but little else. But I did know that my dad was a big Blondie fan, probably more for Debbie Harry. But I guess I'd never appreciated what they'd listened to. When it comes to me or any of us nowadays, you just need to look through our Spotify playlist or our CD collection if you still have one. But for them, they didn't have as much disposable income at the time, so it's been harder to discern. And actually, when going through some of their CDs recently to make some room in their house, I realised that my parents' era was actually those pre-teenage years from the late 50s and then the early 60s, which makes me think about this particular endeavour. It would be far easier for me to cover the 90s. That was when I was 16, really into music, and probably wouldn't have to research everything. But actually, the 80s fascinate me and take me back to my childhood years. So maybe it's the same thing. I'll be interested to hear people's thoughts. To that end, you can find me on your socials as the 80s Mixtaper, or if you're old school like me and want to email in, it's completed80s@aol.com. Playlist 20 may be our biggest, most impactful playlist yet. It's February 1981. In the next 2 episodes alone, just through sheer calendar order, we will meet the kings of the early decade, the biggest global band, certainly of the first half of the 80s, Duran Duran. We will meet the 2 biggest UK solo artists of the decade, Kim Wilde and Shakin' Stevens, introduce the country legend Dolly Parton, reach the first of Roxy Music's what I like to call their yuppie sex song trilogy, relive the theme music to the late 80s Opportunity Knocks reboot, and end the playlist next week with one of Stevie Wonder's biggest hits. And all just because they happened at the same time. Anyway, let's get back to the music. Alrighty folks, we're back with a band we last met as we first slipped into 1980, episode 4 no less. The Pretenders, picking up where we left off with their swaggering, slinky 1979 breakout, Brass in Pocket. A song that stormed the UK charts to number 1 and made Chrissie Hynde a leather-jacketed icon. That was the debut album, Pretenders, a record so raw and confident it felt like it could arm wrestle any punk or new wave contender and win. Fast forward to 1981 and the band's back with their sophomore effort, Pretenders 2, and a lead single that's got just as much strut, Message of Love. The song demands your attention, big, bold, and a little messy, like love itself. This is track 1, playlist 20. Message of Love dropped in February 1981, hitting the UK charts at number 28 on February the 14th, Valentine's Day no less, and peaking at number 11 a week later. Not quite the chart topper Brass in Pocket was, but a top 20 hit ain't nothing to sneeze at, especially for a band still proving they weren't a one-album wonder. Stateside, it cracked number 5 on the mainstream rock chart and number 44 on the dance club chart, which is odd when you think about how this song's not exactly disco. It's a rock and roll love letter, but not the sappy kind, more like one scribbled in a hurry on a bar napkin, full of heart and a little bit of grit. The track came together in Paris at Pave Marconi Studio, a place that probably smelled like Gauloise and ambition. Unlike most Pretenders songs, where Chrissie Hynde walks in with a fully formed gem, Message of Love was a band effort, cooked up in the studio from a rough sketch. Drummer Martin Chambers said they'd never really recorded without rehearsal before, but this time Chrissie bought a half-baked idea and they jammed it out, nailing it to tape in 2 hours flat. That's the magic of the original lineup: Hynde on vocals and rhythm guitar, James Honeyman Scott on lead guitar, Pete Farndon on bass, and Chambers on drums. These guys were tight, telepathic, even when they were winging it. Musically, it's a chunky beast. It opens with these dueling guitars, Honeyman Scott and Hynde tossing chords back and forth like they're sparring, while Chambers lays down a tom-heavy beat that feels like it's stolen from some old swing tune. Think Gene Krupa with a punk edge. Chrissie's voice cuts through like a switchblade, delivering lines like, "Now the reason we're here as man and woman is to love each other, take care of each other." No chorus, just instrumental breaks that hit like adrenaline shots, and a key change after the bridge when she sings over and over and over. That makes the whole thing feel like it's lifting off. Structurally, it's a spiky middle finger to convention, built on a 2-chord riff that's all attitude. Lyrically, it's Chrissie at her most pragmatic romantic. This is lovers' mutual support, a pact to stand by each other. There's that killer Oscar Wilde quote, "We are all of us in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars," lifted from Lady Windermere's Fan, which gives the song a poetic edge without being pretentious. And then there's the line, "When love walks in the room, everybody stand up. Oh, it's good, good, good," like Bridget Bardot. Chrissie just tosses that Bardot reference out like it's nothing, a little wink that's so effortless you can picture her grinning in the vocal booth. The vibe of Message of Love is pure glam rock stomper meets new wave urgency, but it's got this raw in the moment energy that makes it feel like the band's playing it right now. Critics loved it. Stuart Mason at AllMusic called it unfairly overlooked, praising Farndon's bass and Chambers' skittering snare fills, while Sean Murphy at Pop Matters said it deserved more radio play. This was the lead single off Pretenders 2, an album that some folks, like the fine people at Crushing Crisis, called the weakest of the band's first 3, but still stunning. It's not as singular as the debut, not as hit-heavy as Learning to Crawl, but Message of Love is a highlight that holds its own. It's also got some MTV love when the network launched in August 81, the 19th video they played, though it was a bare-bones clip of the band rocking out in a studio. No frills, just vibe, which is the Pretenders' style. Chrissie was dating Ray Davies of the Kinks at the time, and you can feel that personal undercurrent in the lyrics. She's not writing about some fantasy, this is love as she's living it. Complicated, real, no bullshit. The B-side, Porcelain, was another extended play track, and the song also appeared on that EP before landing on Pretenders 2. It's a snapshot of a band at their peak, before tragedy hit with Honeyman Scott and Farndon's deaths in 82 and 83. That raw live wire energy, you can't fake that. So here's Message of Love, a song that's all about standing up when love walks in, but also about the Pretenders standing tall as a band. It's not their biggest hit, but it's one of their best, urgent, unpolished, and unapologetic. Crank it up, let Chrissie's voice hit you square in the chest, and maybe, just maybe, you'll feel like you're looking at the stars. Next up, an absolute country superstar, someone you will all know, but amazingly, considering the legend she already was, we will only meet her once on this pod on her own. But this one time is quite special. Alright, let's get to work. We're clocking in for Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, the 1980 single that dropped like a perfectly timed coffee break and became a cultural juggernaut by early 1981. This was a monster. It's Dolly's first US Billboard Hot 100 #1, a feminist fist bump wrapped in a country pop banger, and a tune that somehow makes the soul-crushing monotony of office life sound like a revolution. Written for the comedy film of the same name, where Dolly starred alongside Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, 9 to 5 is the sound of typewriters clacking, dreams grinding, and a woman staking her claim as a pop culture titan. Press play now. Dolly Rebecca Parton, born January the 19th, 1946 in Locust Ridge, Tennessee, is the fourth of 12 kids raised in a dirt poor family in the Smoky Mountains. Her folks, Robert Lee and A.V. Lee Parton, scraped by. Her dad, a sharecropper, her mum, a singer, who passed down a love for music. By age 6, Dolly was writing songs, starting with Tiny Little Tassel Top, and by 10, she was performing on Knoxville's Kaz Walker show. At 13, she cut her first single, Puppy Love, on Gold Band Records. Didn't chart, but she was already hustling for more. She hit the Grand Ole Opry the same year, introduced by Johnny Cash, earning 3 encores. In 1964, she moved to Nashville, signing with Tree Publishing and Mercury Records. Her early singles flopped, but by 1967, she was on the Porter Wagoner show, duetting with Wagoner on hits like The Last Thing on My Mind. Her first solo album, Hello, I'm Dolly, dropped that year on Monument Records. The 1970s saw her soar. Joshua in 1971 and Jolene in 1973 hit number 1 on the country charts, with Jolene scraping number 60 on the pop charts. She ditched Wagoner in 1974, went solo and racked up more country number 1s. I Will Always Love You, Love Is Like a Butterfly, The Bargain Store. By 1980, she'd written over 3,000 songs, starred in films, and opened Dollywood. A country legend, sure, but her crossover to pop stardom was still brewing. Now, 9 to 5, released in November 1980. It's the title track for the film 9 to 5, a workplace comedy about 3 women fighting sexist office culture. Dolly wrote the song while on set, inspired by the slow grind of filming. Legend has it, she got the beat by clacking her acrylic nails together backstage, mimicking a typewriter's rhythm. The lyrics, sharp, precise, and universal, capture the exhaustion of the daily grind. Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition. It's the song for anyone who's ever punched a clock and felt the system chewing them up. They just use your mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. Dolly's voice, bright, warm, defiant, lifts the frustration into something much more empowering, almost joyful. The song's stats are wild. It hit number 1 on the Billboard Country Chart on January the 24th, 1981, and by February the 21st, it topped the Hot 100 and Adult Contemporary charts, making Dolly only the second woman to rule both country and pop charts with one song, after Jeannie C. Riley's Harper Valley PTA in 1968. It went gold on February the 19th and platinum by 2017. By February 2019, it had 500,000 digital downloads in the US alone. The song snagged 2 Grammys, Best Country Song and Best Country Vocal Performance for a female, plus an Oscar nod for Best Original Song and a People's Choice Award for Favourite Movie Song. It ranked number 78 on the American Film Institute's 100 Years, 100 Songs list in 2004. The music video, blending film clips with Dolly and her band, cemented its cultural footprint. It even inspired a 2008 Broadway musical and a mid-80s sitcom. In 2021, Dolly re-recorded it as 5 to 9 for a Squarespace Super Bowl ad, proving it still had legs. But the UK, that's where things get slightly odd. 9 to 5 peaked at number 47 in 1981, despite selling 303,000 digital copies by July 2014. It's one of the best-selling singles to never crack the top 40. Before this, Dolly had only one UK chart hit, Jolene, peaking at number 7 in 1974. So why the UK cold shoulder? Country music's always been a tough sell across the pond. The UK charts in the early 70s leaned hard into glam rock, punk and disco. Think David Bowie, T-Rex or ABBA. Jolene, with its raw, twangy storytelling, snuck through, but maybe its universal tale of jealousy hit harder than genre snobbery could block. It racked up 255,000 downloads and 6.68 million streams, boosted by a 2014 Glastonbury performance that sent it back to number 52. But 9 to 5, despite its pop sheen and feminist punch, It landed in a UK scene dominated by new wave and synth pop, Adam and the Ants, The Police, Ultravox. Country, even Dolly's crossover kind, didn't click with Radio 1's playlist gatekeepers. Plus, the film 9 to 5 wasn't as big in the UK, grossing $103 million worldwide, but lacking the cultural chokehold it had in the US. The song's Workplace Rebellion might have felt less urgent in a UK still grappling with Thatcher's economic shake-ups, where punk's raw anger or synth pop's escapism ruled. Dolly's UK struggle pre-9 to 5 also ties to her slow crossover arc. Her early hits like Joshua or Coat of Many Colours were country to the bone, and the UK wasn't buying. Jolene broke through because it's less genre-bound. Its acoustic groove and emotional gut punch transcended country's twang. By 1983, her duet with Kenny Rogers, Islands in the Stream, hit number 7, proving she could crack the UK with the right pop polish. 9 to 5 had that polish, but timing and taste kept it from soaring. This song, though, it's bigger than the charts. It's an anthem for the underpaid, overworked and overlooked. Dolly took a typewriter's clack and turned it into a battle cry. She didn't just sing about the grind, she made you want to fight it, or at least laugh through it. That's her genius, taking pain and making it sparkle. By 1981, she was no longer just a country star, she was a global force, nails clacking, ambition brewing. Track 3, and it's time to introduce one of the biggest bands of the first half of the decade. Big on a global Beatles mania scale, girls fainting and screaming kind of way. I personally think that alongside Adam Ant, they are responsible for moving music away from doom and gloom to something much more aspirational, bright and vivid, something which would ripple through the pastel suits in Miami Vice to Timmy Mallett's shirts. We're with a bunch of art school weirdos from Birmingham, England, who decided to conquer the world with a song called Planet Earth. This is Duran Duran's debut single, the spark that lit the fuse on their neon-drenched MTV-fueled rocket ride to global stardom. It's a song that's equal parts sci-fi daydream and dance floor banger, a track that name drops the new romantic movement while sounding like it's beaming in from a glittery alien discotheque. So grab your eyeliner, tease up that hair, and let's dive into the story of Planet Earth, the band that made it, and why it's so important 44 years later. Duran Duran started in 1978, born from the restless imaginations of two Birmingham kids, Nick Rhodes and John Taylor. Nick, a synth nerd with a knack for visuals, was barely 16, messing around with keyboards and dreaming of David Bowie's Berlin era. John, a lanky charmer with a guitar, was his childhood buddy, equally obsessed with Bowie, Roxy music and the funky grooves of Chic. They met at art school where they roped in Stephen Duffy to sing and play bass, forming a scrappy trio that gigged around Birmingham's dive bars. They called themselves Duran Duran, swiped from the villain in Barbarella, that campy Jane Fonda sci-fi flick. It was a name that screamed ambition, like they were plotting to outglam everyone. The band's early days were a revolving door of singers and players. Stephen Duffy bailed, Simon Colley left, Andy Wickett fronted for a bit, but nothing stuck. By 1979, they added drummer Roger Taylor, no relation to John or Queen's Roger for that matter, who'd been in local punk bands. John switched to bass, locking in that throbbing ribbon section. Still, they needed a guitarist and a singer who could match their vision of punk attitude meets disco swagger. Enter the Rum Runner, a Birmingham nightclub that became their laboratory. The club's owners, brothers Paul and Michael Barrow, saw star potential in these kids. They gave Duran Duran rehearsal space, odd jobs, John worked the door, Nick DJ'd, Roger bussed tables, and a stage to hone their act. As the Blitz was for the London scene and Spandau Ballet, Visage and Boy George, so the Rum Runner was for Duran Duran. A hub for the burgeoning new romantic scene, all frilly shirts and futuristic dreams. In April 1980, they placed an ad in Melody Maker for a Livewire guitarist. Andy Taylor, a Newcastle rocker who'd cut his teeth in cover bands, answered. His raw, AC/DC-inspired riffs were a perfect foil for Nick's Brian Eno-esque synths. Then in May, a barmaid at the Rum Runner, Fiona Kemp, suggested her ex-boyfriend, a drama student named Simon Le Bon. Simon showed up to his audition in pink leopard skin pants, carrying a notebook stuffed with poetry. I turned up in the best clothes I thought would appeal to the band, he later said, probably half cringing. The band wasn't sold on his voice at first. Nick wanted a Bowie-Reed pop hybrid, but Simon's melodies and lyrics clicked. At his audition, he wrote the vocal line for Sound of Thunder on the spot. That notebook, it was a goldmine. Nick recalled, not only were they lyrics, they were really great lyrics. I thought, wow, these are songs in here. By July the 16th, 1980, the classic lineup, Simon Le Bon, Nick Rhodes, John Taylor, Andy Taylor and Roger Taylor, played their first gig at the Rum Runner. They were a band of contrasts, Nick's icy synths, Andy's gritty guitars, John funky bass, Roger's crisp drums and Simon's theatrical wail. They spent months writing, demoing and gigging, blending Kraftwerk's precision with Chic's groove and Bowie's art rock edge. A tour opening for Hazel O'Connor in 1980 caught EMI's eye, sparking a bidding war with Phonogram. EMI won partly because of their Beatles legacy, and in December 1980, Duran Duran signed their deal. Planet Earth, released February 2nd, 1981, was their opening salvo, recorded at London's Red Bus Studios with producer Colin Thurston. It's a 3.5-minute burst of new wave euphoria. The song kicks off with a slow, flanged synth sweep, courtesy of a Roland Jupiter 4 and a Prophet 5, before John's bass and Roger's drums lock in like a pulse. Andy's muted guitar riffs zigzag through and Simon's vocals soar, half cryptic, half cocky. Only came outside to watch the nightfall with the rain. I heard you making patterns rhyme, like some new romantic looking for the TV sound. That new romantic line was a cheeky nod to the scene they were riding, though Nick later called it sarcastic, a jab at their Blitz Kid rivals in London. John admitted it was opportunistic, a way to get noticed, and it worked. The lyrics paint a sci-fi picture. Look now, look all around, there's no sign of life. Voices, another sound, can you hear me now? This is planet Earth, you're looking at planet Earth. Simon said it was about seeing Earth for the first time, like an astronaut or maybe a newborn. John called it a celebration of youth, or the possibility of youth, about feeling good to be alive. The video, directed by Russell Marquet, leaned into the cosmic vibe, with the band in futuristic makeup and friends from the Rum Runner dancing in wild outfits. Simon's leap off the stage, frozen above a bottomless abyss, became iconic, later parodied by the Dandy Warhols in a clip produced by Nick Rhodes. Planet Earth hit number 12 on the UK singles chart on February the 21st, 1981, and climbed to number 8 in Australia, Duran Duran's first top 10 anywhere. It also cracked the US dance charts, a hint of their second British invasion to come. The B-side, Late Bar, was a fan favourite, while the US release swapped it for To The Shore. The band's night version remix, an extended take for 12-inch singles, showed their knack for reworking songs for clubs, even with 1981's limited tech. The debut album Duran Duran dropped on June the 15th, 1981, peaking at number 3 in the UK. Planet Earth and Girls on Film, which hit number 5 in August, set the stage for their global breakthrough with Rio in 1982. But this song, it's the blueprint. Synths and guitars in a tug of war, Simon's earnest weirdness, and a rhythm section that makes you move. It's a reminder that Duran Duran weren't just pretty faces, they were art school punks with a plan, and Planet Earth was their first step toward world domination. Planet Earth captures that early 80s moment when music was morphing, punk's rawness meeting disco's pulse, all wrapped up in a shiny new romantic bow and feeling more hopeful, more aspirational. It's the sound of kids from Birmingham dreaming bigger than their city and pulling it off. So next time you're feeling nostalgic, crank up Planet Earth. You're on a spaceship with 5 guys in eyeliner and the view's going to be pretty great. Next up, we've met the biggest band with our last song. Now let's meet the biggest UK female solo artist, Kim Wilde. Here's Kim's debut single, one of the great flagship moments of the decade, Kids in America, a song that's pure unfiltered pop. A 3-minute burst of youthful rebellion that's as much a fist pump as it is a middle finger to the status quo. This is Kim Wilde's introduction to the world, a track that screamed, I'm here and I'm not playing by your rules. It's a song that's still got legs, still gets you moving, and still feels like it's daring you to break free from whatever's holding you down. This is track 4. Kim Wilde, born Kim Smith on November the 18th, 1960 in Chiswick, West London, wasn't just some random kid who stumbled into a recording studio. Music was in her blood. Her dad, Marty Wilde, was a 1950s rock and roll star, crooning hits like Donna and Teenager in Love. Her brother Ricky was a teen idol wannabe in the 70s, and together the Wilde family was a songwriting machine. By 1980, Kim, at 20 years old, was singing backing vocals for her dad when RAK Records' Mickey Most, the guy who shaped the Animals and Herman's Hermits, spotted her. He heard something raw, something real, and signed her up. Kim wasn't trying to be a cookie-cutter pop star. She had this punk edge, a defiance that came from growing up in a world of glam and grit, influenced by bands like OMD, Ultravox, and the Sex Pistols. That's the stew that birthed Kids in America. Released on January the 26th, 1981, Kids in America was written by Marty and Ricky Wilde, a father-brother duo who knew how to craft a hook that sticks like gum on your shoe. The song's got this pulsing synth line, a driving beat, and Kim's voice, half snarl, half sweet, delivering lyrics that capture the restless spirit of youth. Looking out a dirty old window, down below the cars in the city go rushing by. I sit here alone and I wonder why, she sings, painting a picture of a kid stuck in a nowhere town, dreaming of something bigger. It's a battle cry for anyone who's ever felt trapped. The chorus, "We're the Kids in America," is an anthem, simple but undeniable, like a spark that sets the whole room on fire. The song hit the UK singles chart like a freight train, peaking at number 2 in February 1981, held off the top spot by Joe Dolce's novelty hit "Shut Up Your Face." Ouch. Still, it spent 10 weeks in the top 40, a massive debut that screams staying power. It also cracked the top 5 in Germany, France, and Australia, and though it was only number 25 in the US in 1982, it's since become her signature track, covered by everyone from Dave Grohl to Tiffany to Cascada. The song's video, with Kim's bleach blonde hair and that defiant stare, was pure MTV bait, even if it leaned a little too hard into the Blondie comparisons. Critics loved it, The Chronicle called it a masterpiece, and Smash Hits cheekily dubbed her debut album the best Blondie album in years. Kim's debut album, Kim Wilde, dropped on June the 29th, 1981, and it was a rocket, also peaking at number 3 on the UK albums chart. It went gold with over 100,000 copies sold, driven by Kids in America, and follow-up singles Checkered Love, which reached number 4, and Water on Glass, which reached number 11. The album's new wave swagger, with a touch of reggae and 60s girl pop vibes, made it a critical darling. Roadrunner called it pure pop, and the Globe and Mail compared Kim to Dusty Springfield. This was no fluke. Kim was a force, and her family's songwriting chops, paired with her raw charisma, were building something big. So how does Kim Wilde go from this one killer single to the biggest selling UK female solo artist of the 80s? It's not just about the sales numbers, it's about consistency, reinvention, and a knack for staying relevant. Between 1981 and 1996, Kim racked up 25 UK top 50 singles, 17 of them in the top 40 during the 80s alone, a record for a British female solo act. Hits like Cambodia, which reached number 12 in 1981, which we'll definitely hear, View from a Bridge, and number 16 in 1982, and You Keep Me Hanging On, which was a number 2 hit in 1986 and number 1 in the US in 1987, kept her on the charts. That Supremes cover, a high-energy banger, made her the 5th UK woman to top the US Billboard Hot 100, joining legends like Petula Clark and Bonnie Tyler. Her 1988 album, Close, was her peak, hitting number 8 in the UK and spawning 4 top 10 singles. Hey Mr. Heartache, You Came, Never Trust a Stranger, and 4-Letter Word. It hung on the UK albums chart for nearly 8 months. The claim that Kim was the biggest selling UK female solo artist of the 80s, often cited in sources like Memorabilia UK, is trickier to pin down. Sales data from the era is murky, and the official charts company doesn't provide a definitive ranking of total sales for female artists. Kim's 10 million albums and 20 million singles sold worldwide are impressive, But she's up against heavyweights like Kate Bush, Annie Lennox and Alison Moyet. Her chart dominance, those 17 top 40 hits, likely fuels the claim as no other British woman matched that consistency. Madonna, with over 24 million album sales in the UK, dwarfs everyone, but she's American. Kylie Minogue's debut album sold over 2.1 million in the UK, but her 80s output was shorter. Kim's relentless chart presence from Kids in America to her 1993 cover If I Can't Have You gave her an edge in visibility and airplay. It's not always raw sales. Kids in America is a real standard bearer for 80s music. It's about every kid who's ever been stuck staring out of a window, itching to break free. Kim's delivery, that mix of grit and melody, sells it. Wilde was a punky kid from Chiswick who carried her dad's rock and roll DNA and her brother's synth pop instincts. By the late 80s, she was writing more of her own material, touring with Michael Jackson, and later pivoting to gardening, yes, gardening, while still dropping albums like 2025's Closer. It all comes back to that first single, that spark of rebellion that lit up the charts and made her a voice for a generation. This is Kim Wilde's origin story, and Kids in America is like its opening chapter. A song that's still blaring from car stereos, still inspiring covers, still making you want to crank up the volume and shout. It's the sound of youth, of possibility, of refusing to sit still, and for Kim, it was just the beginning. For track 5 today, a song many of you will not know, especially if you were not in the UK in the 80s. But if you were alive and well in the late 80s when Opportunity Knocks was rebooted on British television, this became its theme music. We're talking about Kiki Dee's Star, a single that hit the UK charts like a well-aimed dart, peaking at number 13 and hanging in the top 20 for 4 weeks. This is Kiki Dee, unfiltered, soulful and ready to shine. Press play now. Kiki Dee, born Pauline Matthews on March the 6th, 1947, in Bradford, West Yorkshire, was a kid with pipes, winning a talent contest at 10 and singing with local dance bands by her teens. By 1963, a record scout spotted her and she signed with Fontana Records, kicking off a career that spanned over 4 decades. Her early days were gritty, working at Boots in Bradford by day, belting out covers in Leeds by night. She cut her first single, Early Night, in 63, and her debut album, I'm Kiki Dee, dropped in 68, packed with Phil Spector-style tracks and covers like Can't Take My Eyes Off You. None of those early Fontana singles charted, but her 1966 cover of Tammy Lynn's Why Don't I Run Away From You caught fire on Radio London and Radio Caroline, and her B-side, On a Magic Carpet Ride, became a Northern Soul staple. Kiki's voice, blue-eyed soul with a raw edge, made her a go-to session singer. She backed Dusty Springfield on hits like Little by Little and sang on Love Affair's 1968 chart topper Everlasting Love. In 1970, she made history as the first white British artist signed to Motown's Tamla Records, recording in Detroit's legendary studio. Her Motown album, Great Expectations, didn't set the charts ablaze, but it cemented her cred. The 70s brought her biggest break, singing with Elton John's Rocket Records. Her 1973 single Amoureuse hit number 13 in the UK, and I've Got the Music in Me cracked the US Billboard Hot 100 at number 12 in 74. Then came the 1976 duet with Elton, Don't Go Breaking My Heart, a transatlantic number 1 that owned the UK charts for 6 weeks. Kiki was a household name, her voice a blend of grit and grace. Fast forward to 1981, and Kiki's coming off a quieter late 70s period. She signs with Ariola Records and comes out with Perfect Timing, her comeback album produced by Pip Williams. The lead single, Star, written by Doreen Chanter of the Chanter Sisters, is a banger. It's got that early 80s pop sheen, think polished hooks, a driving beat, and just enough synth to feel fresh without drowning in neon. The lyrics, rock and roll are the games you play, high flyer, see your name in lights, temporarily social suicide, oh don't you tell me it's rough, at the top you get the cream of the crop. It's Kiki reflecting on her own grind, the hustle to break through, the fleeting thrill of fame. The song's autobiographical vibe Charting her journey from Bradford clubs to the big leagues gives it heart. It peaked at number 13 in the UK, spent 4 weeks in the top 20 and hit number 64 in Australia. Star didn't fade into the 80s ether. In 1987, when the BBC revived the talent show Opportunity Knocks, they picked Star as its theme. The show, a platform for aspiring entertainers, ran from 87 to 90, and Kiki's track was the perfect fit. Its lyrics about striving for stardom mirrored the contestants' dreams. In our house, it was must-watch entertainment. Kiki's voice blaring Star, that's what they call you, as the crowd cheers. The song even popped up in Debenham's 2018 Christmas ad, proving its legs. Back in 81, Perfect Timing also featured another Elton John duet, a cover of the Four Tops' Loving You Is Sweeter Than Ever, which didn't chart but won over fans. The album itself hit number 47 in the UK, a modest success, with musicians like Patrick Moraz of Yes and Steve Holley of Wings adding heft. Kiki's career didn't stop there. She performed at Live Aid in 1985, reprising Don't Go Breaking My Heart with Elton John and backing his set. She starred in the West End's Blood Brothers from 87 to 89, earning an Olivier nomination. In the 90s, she teamed with guitarist Carmelo Leggeri for acoustic albums like Almost Naked and kept also touring. Her personal life, she beat uterine cancer in her 40s, never married and has no regrets. Kiki's not just a hitmaker, she's a survivor, a musician's musician, endorsed by Scott Walker and David Bowie. Star is her anthem of resilience, a reminder that fame's a grind, but the music keeps you going. Star. It's Kiki's voice, soulful, lived in, carrying the weight of her journey. It's the song's truth. Stardom's a fleeting high, but the craft endures. Whether it was blasting on Opportunity Knocks or ringing in your ears after a Debenhams ad, Star captures that perfect spark of ambition we all chase, even if it burns us. Kiki Dee's been chasing it since Bradford, and she's still out there touring even to this day. For track 6, you will have to excuse me as you indulge one of my theories. Between 1981 and 1982, Roxy Music released their final 3 big singles, and all of them have one thing in common. They're all music you might, let's put this politely, start a family to. But not just any family. In my head, we're in a Kensington or Sloane apartment in London. It's all beige, very tasteful, lots of pot plants, the central heating is far too hot. The dimmer switches have turned the lights down to a sultry low. Tarquin has just been made a junior partner at his law firm and is celebrating with his fiancée Tabitha. After one too many Paul Rogers, Tarquin leads Tabitha into the bedroom. 9 months later, baby Hugo is born. I have no proof, but if there was an explosion of babies in the West Kensington area between 1982 and 1983, Roxy Music are the reason. Our next song is Jealous Guy, the first of Roxy Music's yuppie baby making trilogy. Press play now. We last met Roxy in episode 15.5, slinking out of the neon-lit haze of 1980s Flesh and Blood, and their slinky dance floor-ready single, Same Old Scene. That track, with its pulsing synths and Brian Ferry's Velvet Croon, hit number 12 on the UK singles chart in November 1980. A sleek groove that felt like the band was gliding into a new decade with their art rock swagger, polished to a mirror shine. But then, December the 8th, 1980 happens. John Lennon is gunned down outside the Dakota in New York, and the world stops spinning for a moment. Roxy Music, like everyone else, is gut-punched. What they do next isn't just a pivot, it's a gut-wrenching, gorgeous act of mourning that becomes their only UK number 1 single, Jealous Guy. Picture this, Roxy's on tour in Germany, December 1980, just days after Lennon's murder. They're scheduled to play a TV show in Dortmund on December the 19th, and the wound is raw. Brian Ferry, always the suave frontman with a knack for turning emotion into high art, decides they need to pay tribute. He's long been a Lennon fan. Hell, he'd covered Beatles tracks like You Won't See Me with a certain reverent cool. So they pick Jealous Guy, a deep cut from Lennon's 1971 Imagine album. Not even a single in John's lifetime. It's a bold choice, not the obvious Imagine or Give Peace a Chance, but a raw confessional ballad that lays bare Lennon's insecurities. They perform it live, unrehearsed, and the response is overwhelming. Fans, still reeling from Lennon's death, connect instantly. By February 1981, Roxy's in the studio, cutting a studio version for Polydor. It's released on February the 9th, 1981, with To Turn You On as the B-side, except in Hungary where Same Old Scene backs it. The UK singles chart tells the story of its ascent. Jealous Guy enters at number 21 on February the 17th. By February the 24th, it's at number 6. March the 3rd, it's at number 3. And then on March the 14th, it hits number 1, holding the top spot for 2 weeks until March the 24th when it slips back to number 3. It spends 11 weeks total on the charts, a slow fade until it finally exits on April the 28th. This is Roxy Music's only UK number 1. Roxy's version is Roxy reimagining Lennon. The original Jealous Guy from Imagine is stark, intimate, Lennon's voice trembling over piano and strings confessing his flaws. It started as Child of Nature in 1968, inspired by a Maharishi lecture in Rishikesh, but Lennon shelved it until 1971 when he rewrote the lyrics into this aching apology. I was dreaming of the past and my heart was beating fast. I began to lose control. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry that I made you cry. I didn't want to hurt you. I'm just a jealous guy. Ferry takes those words and drapes them in Roxy's late period gloss. Think Avalon's lush atmospheric vibe, but a year early. His vocal is smoother than Lennon's, less raw but no less haunted, carrying the weight of a fresh tragedy. Phil Manzanera's guitar solos weave through. Andy McKay's sax add subtle colour and a dash of romance. And those cloudy synths in the outro, paired with Ferry's ghostly whistling, turns the song into a 6-minute, 10-second requiem. It becomes not just a cover, it's an apologetic, slightly romantic eulogy. The lyrics, precise as they are, hit different in 81. I was feeling insecure. You might not love me anymore. I was shivering inside. Lennon wrote this as a personal confession, maybe to Yoko, maybe to himself. But in Roxy's hands, post-Lennon's death, it's a collective lament. Fans heard it as a love letter to John, a way to process the unprocessable. I was trying to catch your eye, thought that you was trying to hide. I was swallowing my pain. Every line feels like it's mourning Lennon's absence, his voice silenced too soon. Context matters here as well. Lennon's death triggered a wave of tributes. His own Imagine and Woman hit number 1 in January and February 1981, respectively, before Joe Dolce's novelty hit Shut Up Your Face briefly interrupted the morning. Roxy's Jealous Guy rode that wave, but stood out because it wasn't predictable. They didn't go for the anthemic Lennon, they chose the vulnerable one, the one who admitted he was just a jealous guy. And it worked. The single also topped the charts in Australia and cracked the top 10 across Europe. Roxy made Jealous Guy a staple. They played it at Live Aid in 1985, with Dave Gilmour's guitar solo adding a new layer of poignancy. It's been on every Roxy Music and Brian Ferry tour since, a testament to its staying power. The studio version appears on compilations like the Ultimate Collection in 1988, though some greatest hits edits trim it down to 456, which purists grumble about. Back to the Same Old Scene for a second. 1980s Flesh and Blood was Roxy leaning hard into their polished, pop-leaning sound, moving away from the avant-garde edge of their Eno days. Jealous Guy feels like a bridge between that slickness and something deeper, more human. It's Roxy at their most emotive, taking a song about personal failure and turning it into a universal cry. The outro, with Ferry's whistling fading into those synths, feels like Lennon's spirit drifting off, a final goodbye. This was a moment Roxy Music, the art school weirdos turned sophistopop kings, found themselves carrying the torch for a fallen icon and brought a beautiful love song back to life. They made Jealous Guy their own, and in doing so, gave the world another memory of Lennon. You listen to it now, and Ferry's voice and those lush textures wrapping around Lennon's words are like a warm, passionate embrace. Okay, let's finish the pod today with another great country crossover in the same vein as Dolly. Another slice of Americana where the air's thick with the smell of wet asphalt and Eddie Rabbitt's I Love a Rainy Night is blasting out of every AM radio in the States. This song is pure unfiltered joy, like splashing through puddles in your best boots. It's a country crossover juggernaut that steamrolls genres, topping the Billboard Hot 100 Hot Country Singles and Adult Contemporary charts in early 81. In the UK, it peaked at number 53, spending 5 weeks on the charts, a modest splash compared to its stateside tsunami. But this isn't about numbers, it's about a guy from Brooklyn of all places, turning a rainy night into a 3-minute celebration of life's simple pleasures. This is track 7, our final track today. Eddie Rabbitt, born on November the 27th, 1941, wasn't your typical country star. No Nashville cradle here. He's a Brooklyn kid, raised in East Orange, New Jersey, by Irish immigrant parents. Country music wasn't exactly pumping through the boroughs, but young Eddie got hooked via a Boy Scout camp where a scoutmaster strummed some country tunes around a fire. That was it, his brain rewired. He dropped out of high school, worked gigs at Newark bars, and even clocked time at a mental hospital while chasing music on the side. By 68, he's in Nashville, scraping by with odd jobs, truck driver, soda jerk, before landing a songwriting gig. His first big break, writing Kentucky Rain for Elvis Presley in 1970, a moody ballad that showed Eddie could craft heartbreak with the best of them. Ronnie Millsap's Pure Love in 74 cemented his rep as a hitmaker. Rabbitt's own recording career kicked off in the mid-70s, and by the late 70s, he's pioneering this crossover sound, country with a pop sheen, polished but not plastic. Hits like Suspicions and Every Which Way But Loose, yep, the Clint Eastwood orangutan flick, showed he could swing between honky tonk and top 40 without ever breaking a sweat. By 1980, his album Horizon drops, and it's his peak. Sleek, radio ready, but still got that heart. Driving My Life Away hits number 5 on the Hot 100, and then comes I Love a Rainy Night, his only number 1 pop single. The song's origin story is straight up serendipity. Back in the late 60s, Eddie's in his tiny apartment, rain pounding the windows at 1 a.m. He grabs a tape recorder, sings, well, I love a rainy night, I love a rainy night, and then forgets about it. Fast forward to 1980, he's rummaging through old tapes in his basement, finds this snippet, and it's like unearthing a treasure map. With songwriting pals Even Stevens and David Malloy, he fleshes it out. The lyrics are simple but vivid. I love to hear the thunder, watch the lightning. When it lights up the sky, you know it makes me feel good. No metaphors, no angst, just a guy who digs the rain. Musically, it's a masterclass in less is more. It's got this rockabilly bounce like Elvis at Sun Records, with big juicy guitars from Larry Byram, ex-Steppenwolf, and a rhythm track that's all finger snaps and hand claps, mixed by percussionist Farrell Morris to mimic windshield wipers. Eddie multi-tracks his own vocals, harmonising with himself like a quartet of clones. The result, a song that feels like it could have been a hit in 1955 or 1985. It's timeless, catchy as hell, and somehow avoids being corny. Lyrically, it's pure optimism. Showers wash all my cares away. I wake up to a sunny day, 'cause I love a rainy night. While the Temptations were about hiding tears in the rain, this song is about dancing in it. The bridge, puts a song in this heart of mine, puts a smile on my face every time, is so earnest you can't help but grin. And that outro, I love a rainy night, you can see it in my eyes, yeah it makes me high, and I love you too, is like Eddie's winking at the listener, tossing in a little love note for the hell of it. This was Eddie's moment. After I Love a Rainy Night, he kept the hits coming. Step by Step, You and I with Crystal Gale, but nothing touched this song's universal glow. It went gold, sold 1 million, and even popped up in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and Family Guy. Sadly, Eddie's story ends too soon. He died of lung cancer in 1998 at 56, leaving behind a legacy that's quieter than Dolly or Kenny, but just as real. With I Love a Rainy Night, Eddie is taking a mundane thing like rain and making it a party. In 81, with the world shaking off the 70s and Reagan just sworn in, this song was a palate cleanser. No politics, no drama, just a guy loving a storm. The UK didn't quite get it. 53 isn't exactly a chart topper for the same reasons we covered about Dolly Parton in this very episode. But in the US, it was a cultural moment, knocking Dolly's 9 to 5 off the Hot 100's top spot, funnily enough. The last time country singles went back to back at number 1. That's it for the first half of Playlist 20 as we start to get into the thick of 1981. Join us next time where we go Einstein a go-go, meet Shakin' Stevens, David Grant with Lynx, and end with a big one from Stevie Wonder, amongst others. Until then, have a great week. Take care.